Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to another live stream of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and video game news. Today is Friday, May 26th, starting again late. You can see the regional qualifiers have begun, which maybe points towards giving up in general on the attempts to get to the regional qualifiers. I still need to play like one more spell trap card, but there's a real argument to take the last 4 to 5 days we have in this month and just try to get up to platinum ranked play instead. I did play a little bit off screen, but inherently whenever I play off screen I lose interest very quickly in Yu-Gi-Oh! And stop paying attention and then start losing. I don't stop losing. If only. So, yeah. I also watched on Hulu Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, which ironically is the 6th spin-off game. Look at this, we have just like only 3 new cards in the Legacy pack. Yeah, it's the percentage feels like it's getting smaller and smaller. And Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, each spin-off basically introduces a new concept. So, like, let's see if I can accurately explain this. Yeah, so the last game I played, it said I was going to fall down a rank if I lost. So I think I would need 3 victories to get this 100 gems, and then another 3 victories in a row to get this title. Plus, even if I got to second stage, I am really just getting the second stage to then kind of immediately give up. Like maybe play a few games to see if I could get in the top 10,000, but I'm not sure it even tells you your rank, so you wouldn't really know that. But the hope would be just to get 20 of these special reward tickets instead of just 1 if I made it to the second stage, which that's all a big hope. And everything I do while playing here is just going to eat into my time as far as getting to ranked by the end of the month, to getting ranked up to platinum by the end of the month. So, yeah, the first spin-off, and that's how they were describing it on this Yu-Gi-Oh! Wikipedia that I checked afterwards, introduced the concept of synchro summoning. They didn't introduce the idea of extra decks because that was in the first Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. And then the second spin-off, I believe, introduced the concept of XYZ summoning. And then the next spin-off, so each anime is introducing just like one concept for quite a few episodes, like at least 20 episodes each anime spin-off to introduce a concept that's fairly complicated until you get to Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, which I'll get to that point eventually. So pendulum summons were added, and then link summons were added after that, which inherently, I guess that explains why I did not really know any of those concepts when I first started playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Is because I didn't watch any of those spin-off animes, and clearly that's where they educated at least the Western world around that concept. I still don't really understand how the speed duel, and a lot of those, at least one of those spin-off animes really did focus so much on speed dueling as if that was going to be a really playable rule set or format, and I just don't think it really is. If speed dueling was something that mattered, then there should be, of the multiple different Yu-Gi-Oh! Games that are still being supported by Konami at this point, there should be one that is focused around speed dueling. That being said, one of the spin-offs does introduce kind of the idea of what you see in Duel Links, which is close to speed dueling. where you have only 3 monsters and 3 spell and trap cards, and they just try and reduce all of that, reduce the amount of characters you can have on the field at one time. But Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s throws out the baby with the bathwater and makes a completely different game called Yu-Gi-Oh! That really shouldn't be called Yu-Gi-Oh! In making Rush Duels. Rush Duels, according to the Wikipedia I looked at afterwards, and I didn't watch all of Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s. I watched about 6 episodes jumping around. The anime itself also is very young and in no way as dark as the previous Yu-Gi-Oh! Stories. There's no Shadow Realm, no people getting killed. Even the first spin-off after the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Series apparently got very, very dark after the first half of the first season, which I wouldn't have thought that because the animation style made it look like it was trying to be very kid-friendly. But yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s in particular, it's just like, oh, none of this is that big of a deal. It's all just a big joke. This is a card game for babies. Doesn't matter who wins or loses. You always shake hands with each other and say good game, and that's all very good messages to send. The problem I would say with Rush Duels is if it ever came to the West, you're buying totally new cards with basically the same art for a lot of cards, with a incredibly simplified rule set. How simplified is it? Well, the first season of Rush Duels has a major focus working up to the big reveal of the ultimate magic spell card that's going to be a major focus throughout, and a major game changer in the card, Fusion. Like, Fusion existed even before there was a spell card called Fusion in the original version of Yu-Gi-Oh! In the original rules in Japan. And then they, in the second series, build up to a magic card that will be a major game changer in Monster Reborn. So, yeah. If the main emphasis is that they're going to change the game by introducing Fusion, which, yeah, nobody even really uses Fusion as a spell card in any competitive deck in the 25-year-old regular Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. And Monster Reborn, sometimes playable, but not really that playable. I have to also assume that the Rush packs and the Rush cards are considerably watered down. But in Rush Duels, you can summon as many monsters as you want, and you, after the first turn, can draw up to 5 cards. So it is a game that is designed to go by very, very fast. You have only 3 monster spots and 3 spell and trap cards, which effectively means there is no pendulum summon zones. There are no extra monster zones. There is still an extras deck that gets introduced in the second season of Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, but originally I think Rush Duels were not going to have an extras deck. There is a field spell and there's a graveyard, but it is just trying to incredibly simplify it. And every single episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s is really just a commercial about how to learn to play Rush Duels. They never do any other kind of duel other than Rush Duels in the game, or do even any special rule set or variant as far as I could tell. I just can't imagine that Rush Duels would work when it's so obvious to find out that it is a incredibly dumbed down product. I would have imagined like that there wouldn't even be effect monsters in Rush Duels, or that their effects would be considerably simplified if they have effects. And that is seemingly somewhat true, but I'd have to actually be able to see the rules on the actual Rush Duel cards, and which are only in Japanese, to confirm that. And I can't disagree with the idea. Yu-Gi-Oh! Games get long and drawn out. You've almost certainly heard me complain about a player just taking forever, and clearly they keep fiddling with the timer to try and make that experience feel better. But Rush Duels only slightly address that. Rush Duels, oddly, don't seem like they have an actual timer. Rush Duels also, I think, get rid of the standby phase and the main phase too, which, fair enough. You rewrite a lot of the rules on cards that mention standby phase and main phase 2. You eliminate that, and you can simplify Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Being one of the second generation, I guess, collectible card games after Magic the Gathering, which would have been much older. And I'm sure in Japan there was some other TCG card games before Yu-Gi-Oh! But yeah, there's totally a lot of bloat, and it can get super long. But I don't think Rush Duels really change too much if you can summon as many monsters as you want. Although it seems like you can only tribute summon one thing per turn. Otherwise you would be creating a situation where you could summon 3 cards, and then you could summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon, and then you could summon 2 other cards, and then you could tribute summon those 2 cards to summon something else, and then you could summon 1 card and tribute something else, so that you would have like 3 cards with massive amounts of attack. They make a new major character that they start to focus with in Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s, which, yeah, I'm still not sure why it's called 7s. It's like they intentionally skipped the 4 when they really could have just skipped to stayed on 6. But yeah, I can't imagine I'd ever want to play Rush Duels. I can't imagine I would really want kids to learn Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duels and have to buy all new cards. It's not just a rule set change. And even though Rush Duels are super quick, they still do a lot of repetitiveness in the anime. It's fairly cheap in that they're calling out attacks. And the major character is basically just a Dark Magician ripoff and Magical Girl ripoff. And what strikes me as strange too on Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s is they're still showing a lot of belly and stuff. For as many times as they have had skin showing on Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards and then censored it in the West, they don't seem like they really want to just address that issue in the initial launch, which at a certain point, good for them for not censoring in Japan, just because they're planning on eventually translating the anime to the West. But yeah, the fact that they have extra time to do shoutouts of the attacks is ridiculous, and the fact that they can squeeze an entire battle, it seems like every battle, even the really big battles, are taking place in an individual episode, so they probably could just shuffle the episodes around, is a testament to how short Rush Duels are, which just means it's going to be very repetitive. It's the same thing with like Marvel Snap too. Like Marvel Snap is way faster than Rush Duels would be, in that The average game is really targeting about 3 minutes. So if you're looking for something super fast, a Marvel Snap game makes even more sense. But this trend, which I hope doesn't stay around that long, doesn't really appeal to me to try to take what has been a genre that has always been a more time committed, longer experience and turn it into a very abrupt experience. Alright, so we've got, as far as the Road to the World Championships and the qualifiers, all of those challenges done. So I think with that loss, it makes a lot of sense to just quit playing the World Championship. Give up on that 100 gold and save myself a lot more frustration by playing this. I need 2 more wins here to get to rank 1, then I need 3 wins over that. If all the good players are playing the World Championship right now, this might be very easy. Clearly, I still am just getting worse and worse as I'm playing my Zodiac Tri-Brigade deck, and I need to make a Tier Laments deck if I can, which there really isn't a lot of argument that I can't. So for the accountability section, otherwise, I may have not even mentioned this before. As far as Yu-Gi-Oh, I've played some more LEGO DC supervillains, and I've gotten all of the open world, both on Earth and the other location, which I guess that's a slight spoiler for a pretty bad game. But yeah, I've done all the free play stuff, so now it's just going to be running through the levels in free play mode to get the last bit of collectibles. So it's still probably going to be somewhere between 5 and 10 hours, unless I just breeze through it, which you probably won't if you're trying to find all the mini kit pieces and all the collectibles in the free levels, even though the levels in DC Supervillains are particularly small. The overworld is the whole game is somewhat buggy, and darn it, I picked the wrong card. Forward we go. And that's as far as I want to play. It's just in there. That's a decent setup. Could have been a better setup. I could have had a higher attack. But yeah, I did continue to make some progress there and make some footage. But anyways, I may not have even mentioned this, but I was using the Windows subsystem for Linux in Windows 10, which allows you to run a compatibility layer from Windows 10 to Linux to install a Linux basically virtual machine. And so I installed Debian on it, and then I installed a graphical user interface called Vorta, V-O-R-T-A, which helps just give you a nice interface to run a backup software that you can use on Linux servers called Borg Backup. These are both references to Star Trek. Borg Backup is a compression and deduplication encrypted backup software, and it is from of the ones I've tried to use and found, it looks like it is kind of the best option to back up if you're backing up to a Linux server, and there's just a decent chance you would be backing up to a Linux server even if you have a Windows computer. I had seen talk that the Windows subsystem for Linux has a very slow file access. Like, Microsoft just didn't program it particularly well. But I didn't really feel that experience. Like, yes, I have an SSD, and I backed up my SSD, which was about 250 gigabytes. So my entire operating system. And this is the initial backup, whereas future backups would take less time, hopefully, unless everything on your hard drive has just changed. Let's see, do we want to activate this first? I guess maybe out of an abundance of caution, we do this. It took about 12 hours. So 250 gigabytes in 12 hours over my local network, going from my PC to my router, using SSH to connect. That's how borg backup works. It doesn't kind of matter. Using a very modern, powerful encryption key of an elliptical curve 25519, I believe. Which that was something my old router actually, I don't think, supported, was the elliptical curve encryption keys. It was using the older encryption keys. Mostly, I think that would be attributed to the fact that they didn't have, the old router didn't have enough processing power to do the new encryption keys. Anyways, so I don't want to get too into the weeds with nerd stuff, but I would call that a success, and I'm glad for any success these days. I've had so many projects that look like they're successes and then fail, or fail before they even get to a point of looking like a success. Could have probably summoned the 3 monster. Let's just do it this way then. We'll just directly attack. Oh man, I just don't seem like I can do anything here. Like, will this not kill it? Oh, this is irritating. Okay. We'll just end the turn here, and the good news is if we can defeat this card, I don't think he's got much else on the field, but what else he can do, but Cannot be destroyed. Also, any opponent it battles is destroyed at the end of the damage phase. So this trap card is the thing that caused this guy to not be destroyed. Did I do anything else? Well, yeah. I'm still playing lower decks on my phone, which is yet another idle game that is taking up too much time. I really should get rid of Golden Goblins is actually the name of the goblin mining game. I finally committed that name to memory. In that game is just going on forever, and it has some pretty bad false advertising in its commercials. As far as what it shows. Plus, it's just not going to add any new content or do anything interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4. Summon this. Activate this. And banish this. Bringing anything to my hand though, just to return it back to the deck. Let's see, we have Cat of Gaming on the chat saying hello. Yeah, I haven't made any progress as far as trying to figure out how to have better rules to say hi. But I do want to rewrite those rules and try and make them less a list of no's and more a list of yeses. I also started to work towards potentially having interstitial web pages, but I'm not sure it's actually going to work. The UI Vision macro program, it's my turn, I have to actually end my turn, may not actually be capable of launching a local web page in Firefox, or it may just be because there were spaces in the file name, and that's the problem. But I did take the first step to try to experiment with that, and it didn't work. But yeah, I think that would be very helpful. Level summon. Let's just let him do everything he's gonna do first. And then we'll activate this. Activate this, and maybe activate this too. There's been several free games going out, and right now it's Memorial Day, so there might be some Memorial Day sales. Although, in all fairness, I wouldn't expect there to be. I wouldn't be surprised if there aren't really that many good deals. I guess most notably, I'm looking for a Samsung TV, but really just only a Samsung TV being on sale. Okay, so this guy, at this point, will be completely finished. Like none of his abilities will activate. but I didn't keep enough bullets in my gun to actually summon the character I needed to summon. So I'm just going to end up with this character. My favorite cell phone game, Destiny Child, has a new event going on, and they've added the player character, whatever name you added as your player, as a actual person in the narrative. And I would say the narrative has just been steadily going in a different direction ever since they got a new writer, new artist, whatever. They went after they changed the main character from being a goofy-looking cat demon character into a much cooler-looking character named Mitra. Everything started to change. They got rid of and sidelined the three main female assistant characters, and those characters have never come back. And it seemed like they were going to replace them directly with three new characters, but also those three new characters have pretty much been sidelined too. They've drastically changed kind of the nature of what you were doing and how you were fighting in the narrative, and now they've kind of drastically changed the nature of how the main character is fighting a second time. So it does just seem like they're going all over the place. Now it is a gacha game with lewd anime waifus, so it's not super surprising that it's just trying to stretch, but it does seem very much like it's just going all over the place, and at some point I feel like I missed some of the plot, and so I'm kind of confused. The story has been released on the global English version, out of order in some points. And so there's slight promises, it definitely feels like, that eventually it would get back to what it was, or get to a better spot. But it's kind of hard to have a lot of faith that it actually will ever make it to that point. That being said, it's still by far the best game of all the other games that I'm playing on my cell phone. Let's go ahead and activate a card to banish. Which one do we think is better? I think we have to banish that one first. Seems like I can banish 2 cards. So it'd be nice if he just surrendered now. Twice I tried to banish that card, and twice it didn't work, and so I've just lost. Sure, that sure doesn't feel like that was a fair competition. Blue Eyes Jet Dragon, very powerful, obviously. And honestly, if I spent more time on Yu-Gi-Oh, I obviously should have like a Blue Eyes deck. Alright, so now I need 3 victories to get to gold tier 1. So I'm just backsliding. Okay, so let's start covering the big news. Homeworld is moving the launch of Homeworld 3 to the first half of 2023 from the first half of 2023 to February of 2024 to deliver the quality experience the fans deserve. Better to delay, particularly in this year where we've had a long list of garbage games and poor launches, than to just be yet another name on that list. Obviously, the first half of 2023 is rapidly ending. Speaking of garbage games, Lord of the Rings Golem is the worst game reviewed in 2023. I watched one review on it, and it definitely looks like it's a terrible game. Although, in fairness, I don't know why people would have put any faith in Daedalic as a publisher, or the actual developer, which maybe that was Daedalic 2. I don't know why you would have had any faith that they could have made a 3D adventure or stealth game when Daedalic has been notoriously only a 2.5D 2D point and click adventure game developer so far, and they've done small experiments on 1 or 2 types of games that weren't point and click adventure games, but I don't think they proved themselves by any means that they could make something as big as something called Lord of the Rings Golem should be. If anything, this is just a highlight of a lack of control on the Tolkien estate, that they would not be more controlling to make sure the game is actually good. The review I saw very much points out that it just doesn't make sense as far as what the story is being told or the actions that you're taking, in that you're playing at least the first half of the game as Golem being captured by the forces of Sauron and just becoming a, for lack of a better term, slave to the forces of Sauron in a prison, and you're doing little kind of chore work. Yeah, that's the phrase. You're just doing these little chores, these little interactions that feel like they were probably the bare minimum vertical slice of activities that, if they were good actions and interesting actions, might have been expanded further. Notably, you get a pet that you control, a pet bird, which it doesn't really feel like the crazy Golem character would have a pet bird that you would keep and control. And then you have a human that you start giving orders to, and in the same way you control the bird. But yeah, it definitely just does not feel like there's any game there. And it being shoved out, and then Daedalic apologizing for its poor quality, definitely feels like there was a major split between a developer and the publisher of Daedalic, or Daedalic just didn't care. Which, that's not really an acceptable thing to do. This definitely could have been a breakout hit for Daedalic and pushed them towards the idea of being a bigger publisher and a major competitor, but as it stands now, you've just made a very poor product that confirms that Daedalic is not ready for prime time. I should have probably done something more than what I did here. And you can see even in my gameplay, there's just a lot of stuff you do. If you want to even be slightly competitive in Yu-Gi-Oh, you really do have to constantly move forward and do a lot of actions. But yeah, it's been overly complicated. Yu-Gi-Oh. Too many cards with too many interactions. I didn't need to set 2 of those, did I? The thing I really want to emphasize here as far as Golem of the Rings is Lord of the Rings Golem's developer says that deeply regrets delivering an underwhelming experiences and pledged to improve the game. I imagine there's just no way you could improve it. The problem here is that it still has like a meta score of 43 when it really should be a 0. Like, the standards are far too skewed, and this is just the continued issue of mainstream video game journalism, is that half of reviewers are just not allowed to give anything less than a 5. And meta score here is 38. Open critic score is, I think, around 43. And there's just no content in there that would justify it getting that high of a score by what should be modern standards. It is also, I guess, worth pointing out that if you're buying all of the stuff you might want to buy as far as DLC, this is actually a $20 no, a $70 game, which maybe if it had been a $5 game, you could say, oh, this is just Daedalic's attempt at doing something with Golem, but recognizing its own limitations. Inherently, if I was Daedalic and I got the rights to a Golem game, it would just be a kind of comedic point-and-click adventure game. There probably would be a lot of stealth-like puzzles throughout the game, but I wouldn't do too much of anything else. You could certainly lean in a point-and-click adventure game also into his split personalities and have some fun with that. But I just don't see a value in making it a 3D game when that's just not Daedalic's skill set. Clearly, they played themselves by putting out a trailer of like a hyper-realistic Golem character and hyped themselves and hyped the audience around the idea of a hyper-realistic Golem character. Which it's important to point out too that the graphics are just horribly glitched. And so, even Golem, who is a grotesque looking character anyways, doesn't look correct. I guess I'm glad I'm not really a Lord of the Rings fan, though. Moving on, other big news is the Pokemon series has sold over 480 million units and made 52.9 billion cards, which is giant numbers, certainly. 52.9 billion Pokemon cards, which, if there's 8 billion people on the planet, yeah, I would imagine close to half of those 52 billion cards are energy cards in Pokemon. They give out way too many energy cards. But yeah, the sad statement you have to wrap this around, though, is that despite its massive success, they're highlighting the latest Pokemon game, which was poorly optimized too. And this is just a repeating narrative for the past year or two, or ever since even 3 or 4, is that we've had some really buggy games. Pokemon has never really been polished or optimized, and has not really evolved in a way that it probably should, for quality of life improvements or just for better features. I would kind of like to see Pokemon go more the way of Assassin's Creed Origins and try something fairly different. Let's just go ahead and summon zoos. And it definitely feels like this Friday is a day they have chosen to dump a lot of bad news, because also there's a report that the Last of Us multiplayer game is being reassessed by Naughty Dog, which is honestly probably a good idea, because there's not really the best of reasons why you should make a multiplayer game around The Last of Us. The Last of Us 1, Part 1 and Part 2 is a single player narrative story. It is best at being that. Yes, there is stealth and clickers, but I don't think those are really the focus. And in the second part, I don't know if you're really dealing with the clickers much at all. The monsters. Probably shouldn't have bothered to play that. Inherently, I think it is going to be a case where more and more games have figured out a way to abandon the idea of multiplayer altogether and still have live services and DLC and microtransactions, which is the best of both worlds in many cases, because then you're still potentially having reoccurring revenue without having reoccurring expenses in server maintenance. Yep. There's a longer apology here from Lord of the Rings Golem on Twitter, which, by the way, since Twitter changed its policy, if this then that has been locked behind the pro level if you want to put anything on Twitter, which means effectively going forward that my Twitter page, I think, is dead. Like, I don't think any automated notification of videos are going to go to Twitter, which, yeah, it sucks. But I definitely am not going to just pay for pro on if this and that for that. It's really hard to justify putting any money into this long-running, multi-year failure of a YouTube channel to try and be monetized. Which, by the way, TubeBuddy came out and said less than 10% of people on YouTube get 1,000 subscribers. Which, that really highlights how much YouTube screwed over 90% of their content creators who had 100 subscribers, which was a much more reasonable number of subscribers and were monetized. From the looks of this, it does seem like Daedalic Entertainment was both the publisher and the developer here. Second Dinner game Marvel Snap has been nominated for the Apple Design Awards next to Resident Evil Village, and then 4 things that I don't recognize: an AI tennis app, Swing Vision, a game called Switch it looks like, Camo Studio, and Rise Energy and Sleep Tracker, which that definitely feels like that is just all over. Let's see. Yeah, so that is an odd combination of apps, and if anything, it really just highlights how iPhones and Apple don't really have a system to promote games as a separate type of app compared to other types of apps, and they're just in general promoting apps that they get a cut from. YouTube has put out a blog post specifically admitting that they're going to have 30-second non-skip ads, at least on TV streaming. So yeah, we kind of know that's the case. And I got screwed there. I didn't get a prompt to activate my ability when I needed to. So that was a waste of Zeus. Alright. Let's destroy the spell card first. And then summon this. Set this. Activate this. Would now be the time to summon the other guy? No, I don't think so. That'll get him down to 2,000. Activate something else. Summoning another character. There's nothing really to summon here, so we'll end the turn. The ESA put out another blurb as far as their digital wellness policy position as a lobbyist. It is just a wall of text this time without any real pictures or charts to go with it. Let's go ahead and cancel this, which leaves him with really only one card he can activate, and then hope we can special summon everything we're planning on special summoning. or just let them concede. One more to gold tier 1. I guess if I get to platinum, there's no chance of getting the diamond. So going back and playing the world championship at that point would make sense. Seems like the tweet has been deleted now, but I saw that Wulong Fallen Dynasty had put out a patch, and then and that had caused the game. Yeah, here it was. 19 hours ago, version 1.08 patch issue in the Steam and Microsoft Store version, an issue preventing the game from launching with GPUs not using NVIDIA DLSS was discovered. Our investigation into the cause is complete, and we're preparing to release a patch to correct it. And then 11 hours ago, file has been released on the Microsoft Store to fix the issue preventing the game from launching. Please update the game for the latest version. Noticeably, the Steam version still hasn't been updated. Which, if anything, that's just a continued narrative of bugginess that they are just not doing enough research, that they're not doing enough testing. It's just not a reasonable outcome that you would accidentally put out a patch that makes the game unlaunchable. And it makes it fairly obvious that the tool sets for testing games are immature and need major improvement. So as much as Unreal Engine 5 can come out and show off all kinds of new ray tracing and visuals and things like that, and claim to have better optimizations, they desperately in Unreal Engine 5 and Unity and all the other engines need a very standardized set of testing, even if it is just a separate service that Epic offers for Unreal Engine, in that your game compiles and then it is sent off to a secure collection of virtual machines, and then some macro type of actions are taken to see if the game runs. Like run launch to title screen at the very least should be a fairly easy test to do. Apparently I need 5 wins. Yeah. To have a game launch and then to have a macro that would automatically take a screenshot of it at the title screen and send back a message saying, I launched to title screen, here's my screenshot. That should be somewhat basic. Here we may get to this just because of network disconnects. Am I doing anything special to my network? No. Do I think it's really my network that's having the problem? No. I really haven't had any network problems since I got to my new router set up, and I just have, I guess, a little bit more work to do that I'll do this weekend, and then I actually am just needing to physically move the router and clean things up and arrange it. Basically run wires and move furniture. Just go ahead and quagmire him with that move. Which, honestly, I didn't need to do that, because I could have used this instead. Just all these chains. Okay, so moving on to the regular bits of news from Video Games Chronicle. We have Tears of the Kingdom now being UK's 6th best Zelda game of all time. Which, do we have a full list here? Let's see. No list as far as what the order is. It is saying that it has overtaken the physical sales of Link's Awakening for the Switch and Ocarina of Time 3DS, which both of those would be re-releases of those games, and arguably they are not combining physical sales for different consoles, where I think you potentially would make an argument that you would combine the different hardware versions. And it is worth mentioning, certainly, nobody's really talking about Tears of the Kingdom now. And I have to just assume that's because people are enjoying it for what it is. They don't have anything surprising or amazing to say about it. But I imagine kids are just playing it, and that's that. Also, it's worth also pointing out that I am not a kid going to a school talking to other kids about Nintendo games and kids games, so it is very possible on the schoolyard and the playgrounds and in classes, kids are talking about Tears of the Kingdom quite a bit. But mainstream video game journalists and influencers on YouTube aren't really talking about the game. But I can't really take that as a bad thing, because they definitely were hyped about it and talking about it when it first launched. It just is more of a indication of how hype dies down and people move on. Amazon Prime Gaming has added 8 more quote free titles for the May lineup. Do we have a full list here? Beast of Marvelia, Island, Calco, Divine Knockout, DKO, Double Kick Heroes, Shattered Tales of the Forgotten King, Tiny Robots Recharged, and Tandem Tail Shadows and Turnip Boy. Let's see. There were 15 titles originally announced, and there's 8 more. Those may have been the games that are leaving, though, because they don't... They don't really seem like they are... Yeah, these are the new games. Noticeably, too, all of these are the Amazon Games app, except for DKO, which is the Epic Games Store. And increasingly, because everything is just on this 3rd or 4th tier launcher, you may be getting the games for free, but you're having to compromise considerably by using a different launcher, and just not getting Steam codes for it. It would be basically impossible to justify paying for Amazon Prime, which is fairly expensive now. I think it's somewhere around $135 a year for the gaming edition. I mean, it really adds nothing. If you are reading ebooks, the Audible and Kindle credits are somewhat useful. If there was good content on Amazon Prime Video, that would be a good offering, but there isn't, so it isn't a good offering. And notably, Amazon Prime Video is mostly given up on trying to be a premium content, and instead putting most of their things behind commercial-based freemium. I really wish I could watch that Lower Decks, but I'm not going to pay for Paramount Plus. And honestly, if Amazon Prime stopped trying to make its own content and literally just tried to negotiate a combined service, like something where having Prime Video gave you access to Netflix and maybe Paramount or HBO Max or Disney Plus, any of those, or any one of those, or 2 or 3 of those combined, if it was free, and then just lead to the increase of Amazon Prime fees, which Amazon Prime fees are probably just going to go up and up and up. Let's see. Moving on, Sega has laid off 121 employees at the company of Heroes studio Relic. The studio says restructuring will, quote, ensure maximum focus is placed on their core franchise, which inherently points out that they have no interest in making anything new as far as Sega is concerned. So it's, at best, you're going to get a sequel to Company of Heroes, Ages of Empire, or Homeworld. I thought Ages of Empires was owned by Microsoft, not Sega, though. That's an interesting potential twist. This guy's just going on forever. This is a tier limits deck, so unless I can kind of counter people's abilities. See, obviously he can still do a bunch of things. So my best bet would to understand each tier limit's ability and figure out which person I'm supposed to focus or should focus on. And then just let them continuously counter everything until they run out of things they can counter. But honestly, easiest thing to do here is just surrender. Just save time and surrender. We won't get a reward, but just save time. Play. We need 3 more victories if we got 3 more disconnects. Yep. Sega not really putting a lot of faith in its, I guess, non-Japanese, Canadian, Vancouver-based studio, and not really putting a lot of faith in things that don't inherently feel like Sega first-party games in the first place, which Company Heroes, Ages of Empires, Homeworld all would be second-party products for Sega. So it seems to me like this is probably them trying to save money so they can double down on trying to make yet another Sonic game and hope that it succeeds. Which at a certain level, Sonic Frontiers did succeed, so maybe they do need to save some money so they can make a Sonic Frontiers 2 that is bigger and better. There definitely felt like there could be some room for improvement around Sonic Frontiers. And if you are going the direction of all future Sonic games being more open world, you would need a bigger budget than if you focused solely on making smaller linear levels like Sonic levels used to be. But in general, I think this is just another example of Sega being really bad as to as far as how they run a company. And I'm saying Sega in general, but I guess it's important to point out this is Sega Europe that made this decision, not Sega of Japan. And the fact that there can be these multiple subsidiaries of subsidiaries is ridiculous. They want to make the argument that corporations are people, and yet no human being can be in 3 different places and be of 3 different minds or more in different subsidiaries. Let's see. Apparently a professional tennis player has put the PlayStation VR title C Smash VRS to test. This is almost certainly just an advertisement. Some about the Amigo Party Central release date and Sonic Music DLC has been announced. The release date is when? Let's go ahead and activate that. Jeez. It is somewhere in this article, but I cannot find it. Oh, here it is. It's below the line here. August 29th is the release date, which is about the only actionable, important piece of information. And I just skipped over it visually. 2 more wins needed, so if I could get just 2 quick disconnects, that would be great. PlayStation VR 2's early sales beat the original, Sony claims. I had mentioned on one of these streams that I was going to do a YouTube short, or I've probably done 3 or 4 YouTube shorts around VR games. It felt somewhat exclusive to not include VR games. The title on the YouTube shorts is automated and it's all just copy and paste, so it says check out this PC game. And so I have gotten 1 bit of feedback, and like most feedback on the internet, it was negative in that somebody said this is not a PC game, it's a VR game, learn to read. To which I did not reply, but I will comment on it here, in that VR games are PC games. I don't know where you would think they aren't. If there was a VR headset that was standalone, like the Oculus Go, okay, at that point then you've got some separate console that is not a PC, and the game specifically on something like the Oculus Go wouldn't be considered a PC game. But if a game is on Steam and it requires a VR headset, it's still a PC game. In the exact same way that if a game on Steam requires a controller, it's still a PC game. Or if it requires a mouse, or if it requires a keyboard. Almost every game on Steam requires a monitor. There is a theoretical blind version of a PC build in which you don't have a monitor turned on or don't use one. Although, in fairness, even if you were completely blind, you probably still would have a monitor for other people to see the screen and help you. I'm not sure Windows would really boot up without a monitor. There is a blind version of Linux that I heard about a long time ago that maybe doesn't require a monitor. And Linux itself is definitely built around the idea that you really wouldn't need a monitor. So yeah, that puts me in a weird position, certainly, where I can dig in my heels just out of spite and make more VR games, or I can just ignore the negativity, which I'd love to encourage more positivity on the internet, wouldn't we all? How you do that, who knows? But for the most part, yeah, I am definitely trying to be better at ignoring negativity. If somebody says something on the chat, I'm going to mostly just ignore them, and if they start to repeat themselves, I'm just going to try and silently mute them or block them. But yeah, I don't really have a desire to try to address or turn around people because they tend not to be capable of being turned around or addressed in any way. And I don't particularly enjoy turning myself into a teacher and having to scold people like they're kids. So from that, that's a long story to say, yeah, I plan on continuing to cover VR games, and I plan on calling them PC games. Since they are PC games. Because it is just going to, it's really still the exact same idea, where there's just not a valid reason to exclude VR games if they are good quality. That being said, the vast majority of games on the VR games on Steam are not good quality, so it definitely isn't going to be a long list of VR games. I guess we leave it there. We'll see what he does next turn. The PlayStation Play State of Play that happened, of which when I talked about it on Wednesday, it felt like there was very little that people bothered to make articles about. I was probably wrong there. Most of the news articles we did talk about that day did come out of that State of Play. It was just not super obvious that they came out. That being said, it was a lot of games that were briefly mentioned in the PlayStation State of Play and clearly didn't have big press package announcements with them for people to make individual articles around them. And yeah, the State of Play definitely feels like this is Sony's attempt of replacing E3 as the big event. Since E3 is effectively dead at this point, you would be kind of crazy to expect anything to ever come back called E3. So now we just have potentially Ubisoft and Microsoft and Activision Blizzard each having their own kind of events. I'm just going to clear the board. Let's see, what do I want to add to my hand? Probably this. We have enough cards in here to summon what I'm looking for. Depends on how many things he can summon. He's running out of cards, but he's definitely accomplishing a lot with his cards. I mean, seriously, if he could just get another 1,000, he could attack directly and win. So, continuing on that thought, PlayStation says it will soon reveal an aggressive plans for cloud gaming. I guess that is to be in line with the Project Q device, which I haven't heard anybody really feel like that device makes the most sense to exist, other than it's just Sony trying to get into hardware using PlayStation branding instead of just Sony branding, and eliminating the need for a cell phone like the Backbone 1 device required. Okay. So we'll start with this. We'll activate this. Do this. And see if this works. If this doesn't work, we probably should just surrender at that point. And that means we have to kill this first. Banish it. We can discard this. Summon that. And then I guess you potentially do this. And then I guess you potentially summon this. And then I don't want to fiddle with it too much, so I'm just going to take this. I want to summon this. This requires 4. So that's 2. That's 1. That's 1. Axe, start that. Then you take the 3,000 here. Go ahead and allow for this ability. And allow for this ability. I guess again I would just take this. Maybe toss that. That may be a mistake. And then we just start to banish link monsters to see if we can destroy that. I guess we can't. So we'll see if we can destroy that. So now you would have to do just a straight up heart of the cards and draw the perfect single card to win. Otherwise we've got this. We had to do a lot of work to get to that point though. Let's see. Sony also says that 30% of the PlayStation Plus users are subscribed to more expensive tiers. 8 million users moved from the most expensive premium subscription, or to the most expensive premium subscription. Which, yeah, that seems more inside baseball than you would expect Sony to release as far as information. We already really talked about Japan's indie game event Bit Summit, confirming its 2023 plans. We've mentioned it before that Sony owns Bungie, and so they're using them to rigorously vet their upcoming live service games, which, if anything, makes it seem like Bungie is not focused at all on making more Destiny content. It's maybe somebody else other than Bungie is now making the Destiny content. It feels to me like there's a decent chance that the Destiny 2 is working its way towards its wrapping up point, and I wouldn't be surprised if they try to do a Destiny 3. Okay. One, two, three. I'm gonna pull out this character instead and see if we can possibly get things out of the graveyard. Just in case there was something he could do there. Yeah, because this guy was not going to attack because of that spell, which has bought him another turn. And we'll just not take any more actions. We talked about it before that Embracer shares have nosedived after the collapse of a $2 billion deal. It'd be very interesting to find out who that deal was with, but it seems like maybe the deal didn't fall apart so terribly that they were willing to throw the other party under the bus. One more win and we'll get to platinum, and then we could go back and go back to playing the road to the World Championships, or World Championships, Regionals, whatever it's called. This is old information. Prince of Persia: Sands of Time in early stages. A lot of this is just old information, so we can just skip through it. Helldivers 2. I guess Helldivers 1 is a fairly old game. Yeah, originally released in 2015 for the PS3, then the 4, then the Vita. So, you are talking 8 years between Helldivers 1 and Helldivers 2. Although, that being said, I don't know if I've heard a lot of people sing the praises of Helldivers and say, boy, do I wish there was a new Helldivers game. It could have happened, but I didn't hear it. It's important to point out that any of these presentations are really just making promises, of which many promises will not be delivered upon. Usually some game does get made and come out, but it doesn't have to inherently be good, and it can be delayed considerably. That was one of the things that, well, that reminds me of a conversation I had while playing LEGO DC Supervillains, making pre-recorded footage, is how the nature of comic books in particular are so wrapped around being a financial product that the art is not even second thought. It's often fourth, fifth thought if it's thought about at all. And you get this very wide separation between the early 90s, 2000s, 2010s web comics, where somebody who is an artist who wants to make their own long-running comic can make a web comic, and they can just go forever, and they can just host it, or they could at one time just host it for basically free. and that created a lot of webcomics that were really good and had a lot of content to them, but they kind of went on forever, or they would just abruptly stop when the artist got busy, went to college, whatever. So there wasn't any kind of editorial or management telling them, actually, you have to finish this story so we can put it in a book and actually sell it. So, yeah, in a lot of ways, webcomics much better, much more freedom to tell a narrative if you stuck with it, but in most cases, a lot of people didn't stick with it all the way to an end. And I am the type of person that believes stories really should have an end. Where you look at the 16 to 20 pages you get monthly in a Marvel or DC comic where the story is never going to end. It may wrap up that chapter, that arc, but then Superman will take on another bad guy the next month, and it is 100% about just selling that next comic and that next story. So there's a lot of cliffhangers and attempt to add as much intrigue as possible. And so there is just way too much editorial control in a Marvel and DC type comic. And unfortunately, there's just not a happy medium. Okay. I should have summoned that here. Let's start this. If I can block, banish this card, I think I'm probably set. I think I might be set. I might not be set though. Yeah, just get rid of this face down card. It's just so much he's activating here. That one doesn't seem like that's too important of a card to get rid of. Okay. Let's see if we can pull this off. We drop this. Put this here. Activate this. We drop this. Activate that. We add this to the hand. Now, I want to activate this. Let's check. Can we do this? I hope this is right. 1, 2, 3. Definitely trying something crazy here. Let's see. So he's just gonna undo my thing, and I can't do anything to stop him from undoing my thing. Alright, put this face down, go into attack mode, get the damage done here, get him down to 1800. Can't really do anything else. So would I have been better off summoning my main character and banishing this card? Probably. Almost certainly. Yep. Again, old news, Solid Snake, Metal Gear Solid Delta, Snake Eater, Alan Wake 2 getting an October release date, Assassin's Creed Mirage, gameplay footage, Dragon's Dogma, being from 2012 as far as a remake. Let's wait until the start of my next turn to activate this trap. So they are going further and further back in the past. Certainly as far as just the remakes. If he reduces the number of characters on the field, that helps a little bit. Well, also if he wins in this whole turn. Here's the announcement for the Project Q device. Incredibly dark screenshot there to show it off. Bungie is also developing a new marathon game, so on top of vetting all the live services for everything else. Okay. This is the last thing I can do. Is activate this and try and stop this from working, which maybe I needed to activate that earlier, and stop this ability from working. He's got a one-turn kill. So let's just let him do the one-turn kill and end this fight. The first look footage of Spider-Man 2 gameplay on the PS5. And then Square Enix seemingly being very happy to let people make the comparisons of Foam Stars to be a ripoff of Splatoon. Although, I think there is a trick potentially that is being missed with Foam Stars when I looked at the footage a second time. Now I have to win 2 times. In that the foam that gets sprayed is making a hardened terrain, it looks like, in the world, and that they are surfing or skating on top of that foam. So you're making your own pathways in a more vertical aspect compared to Splatoon, where Splatoon literally only painted surfaces and then you could travel on those pre-existing surfaces. So under the hood, and I don't know how much this really matters to most people, it does seem like there's a lot more going on for Foam Stars. which also will probably point to it not being that playable on the Switch if it tried to ever be ported to the Switch, which I imagine there's not going to be too many discussions to bring it to the Switch. For better or worse, though, it's also important to point out that the Squid Kids are pretty popular as part of Splatoon, so even though they're kind of weird looking bloober characters from Mario, they are not something that should be overlooked. And so there's going to be somewhat of a struggle to make sure that the squids themselves are interesting. Now I'm gonna play the wrong way here, it looks like, because I went in I should have gone in a slightly different order, but whatever. There would be an argument to not use this one, so I'm actually gonna do that, because my plan is to activate this effect and attach to this. But I think I also screwed up somewhere, because there should be another one that I should have grabbed. Can't activate another one of these, so we'll just leave that all at that. Do that. Summon Zeus. Maybe that will be enough to get them to concede for a quick victory. But yeah, I guess I'm slightly interested in seeing what happens here going forward with Film Stars, if it actually becomes popular. This sci-fi multiplayer first-person shooter called Concord, I don't think I talked about much. The trailer frankly made me think it was a trailer for Starfield, which wouldn't have made the most sense. But yeah, it's not really showing enough, and that's true for a lot of videos at this state of play. Alan Wake 2 digital-only release, DLC plans and pre-order bonuses have been confirmed. Remedy says the lack of disc version helps keep the price of the game lower, which this is an interesting argument that may be the new way in which things get dealt with and addressed as we're trying to move to, as publishers are trying to push people to a 100% digital. You only own the license to that game, you don't even deserve to have a physical disc. I don't know how many people would really buy into that, though. I'm just gonna activate this a second time. My ability is not working. Let's go and cancel his ability. He's running out of cards. I hope it doesn't become a trend that we see digital-only releases. And certainly, since I'm not likely to play Alan Wake 2 anyways, it's not really my hill to die on, but I'd hope that that's the case. And they say that the price is going to be kept low, but seems like the console version is still $59.99, with the PC version being $49.99, so $10 cheaper is hardly a major discount for a lack of a disc. And then it may point to certainly a perspective that Video Games Chronicle has, and that they are pointing out that of all the games showed at that PlayStation showcase, these are the ones that are also coming to Xbox. So 12 of those announcements are also going to Xbox, and they're not exclusives. Yep. Okay, let's try this again. Toss that. Go ahead and activate the second spell card. So that didn't give me a card. Interesting. Can I get to 5100? Well, let's see. If I was to do this here, and then ignore that. No, I don't think that's the right move. I think the right move is probably to toss this first and try and destroy something. Then summon this. Then activate this. Attaching the thing that will give us the most attack. $34. And then summoning this. And I could go crazy and activate this, but I think it's probably better just to go ahead and activate this ability. Do these characters have any ability that would stop me? It doesn't seem like it, because if there was something that would have stopped me, we would see him getting options to activate that ability. Yeah, and I don't think there's anything else that needs to be summoned, so just do that. That does 1800. That does 1200. That does 3400. Of course, we're fairly late into the stream and I'm still playing, because this is the only way I can really motivate myself to continue to play. And I am actually motivated to get one more victory and get to platinum. And I'm not particularly motivated to going back and playing more regionals. I might do that off screen, but that's not super likely either. I am noticing that particularly in the past week or two, I've been very much in the habit of doing less and less work and just being very lackadaisical and lazy as far as making pre-recorded footage, and I really need to get back into more of the obsessive, I'm going to consistently make 8 hours plus every day or every other day of pre-recorded footage. I also need to schedule things, which is I've also gotten very lackadaisical about making that a priority. We already talked about Lord of the Rings Golem. It's really so bad there's just no reason to harp on it. It's universally being panned. Let's see. Spider-Man 2's release date and pre-order details are coming soon. It's interesting how they are trying to imply that people should be as excited about pre-order details as they are a release date, whereas release dates should be informative as far as budgeting, and pre-order details should not really be a thing, in the sense that you shouldn't be asked to pay extra or get hyped about a game. Start with this. Destroy a spell. Interesting. That did not work. Is this gonna work? Or does he have some kind of strategy that merges everything together? Can I activate Call of the Grave and stop that from working? It doesn't seem like I can, but maybe I can. Hopefully that wrecks his strategy. And then hopefully Zeus can run cleanup now. Yeah, he's down to just this card, and this card. Is it beneficial, really, to toss a card using that ability? Probably. Yeah, it is. Because if I didn't toss it, then I wouldn't be guaranteed that I'd have something in the graveyard to use. There's always an opportunity to change how all of this works. But you once again would have to draw a perfect card, or this card would have to do something that I don't think it does. Is this a fish synchro monster? Or is this a fish tuner monster? Like, it seems like I could destroy that now. Then toss this to put more in the graveyard. Toss this to put more in the graveyard. And then get another one of these. Just go full circle. So he was capable of getting a couple of new cards. So he's not totally doomed. But with Zeus on the field, He's not in a good position. Yeah, that was one of the things about Yu-Gi-Oh! 7s and Rush Duels is they definitely emphasize that you always have an opportunity to turn it around because you're effectively drawing 5 cards, up to 5 cards in your hand every turn. So there is this high possibility that the game will change, which means your previous actions in the previous turn tend not to really matter as much. I feel like if you were going to make a Rush Duel, or something like a Rush Duel, it should probably be the idea that there would just be 10 turns in Yu-Gi-Oh! And whoever does the most damage in one turn wins that one turn. More like equivalent to like a trump game where whoever takes the most trumps in 10 turns wins. So then the attack and defense would just not really be directly connected to a life points at all, as an idea. Yeah, let's go ahead and activate this and hope this is the right timing. And maybe you don't do 10 turns, maybe you only do 5, but or you could even do as little as 3. The game would probably be too short at that point. But if you did work on a system like that, that would be interesting. You could even, at the end of every turn, have the board completely clear and then start over from fresh each new turn, or each time each player is played. So that more of the strategy would be played in your hand and what cards you don't play in a single turn and what you hold back for the next turn. At a certain level though, if you're making something new, it really shouldn't be called Yu-Gi-Oh! And it is just going to be a completely different game. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is fairly built into what it is in that it's going to have a lot of cards that have a lot of descriptions and effects, and it's going to be super complicated, perhaps even more complicated than Magic the Gathering. Let's see. Continuing with the Video Games Chronicle articles, Take-Two says GTA needs to be something never seen before but also familiar, which really you can't have it both ways. But I don't also really disagree with Strauss Zelnick phrasing it that way. It needs to feel like a GTA game. That there is definitely some weirdness in LEGO DC Supervillains in that there's a small aspect that is clearly inspired by GTA, in that you can get the police chasing after you for some actions, but not most actions that would be criminal. Like some people, if you run up and punch them in a Lego minifig way, the police will start chasing you. But most people, if you punch them, don't do anything. Some cars, if you steal, will get the police after you. Some cars, if you take, they don't care. It's very inconsistent, and it's just a weird game mechanic anyways. It was a dumb idea to try to make a kids game around the DC supervillains anyways. Like, it needs to just be a lot more kid friendly and play as the heroes. Okay. The fact that we have so many face down cards tells me they probably don't have a solution to my challenge. So I'm going to play this. I'm going to activate this. I'm going to get rid of that. which was just a spell card. And then, see, this we know will kill that. Then this probably kill that. No, probably kill that. That leaves him with one card. So we probably have this next turn. And then June's free games with Amazon Prime have been announced, which seems like we're getting 2 announcements, or 2 articles here. Let's see, Gyms with Destiny, Homeless Dwarf Legacy, Game Code, Once Upon a Gesture, Rogue Book, Revita, Autonauts, Neverwinter Nights Enhanced Edition, Steam World Dig, Top Hunter, The Super Spy, Overtop, Soccer Brawl, Mutation Nation, and then Sengoku 2. And the vast majority of these, again, are Amazon Games app. Yeah. Let's see. Right now, the Epic Games Store latest free games is Fallout New Vegas Ultimate Edition. In case you don't own Fallout New Vegas, I guess that's a good idea. I have no idea what this video is that they're sharing. It looks like a YouTube short or something. It definitely feels like Video Games Chronicle here just found some random YouTube short to use as a video and didn't even look at it. Most people, I imagine, already have Fallout New Vegas though, so I don't know if that's super useful. Apparently there is talk of at least 2 new pieces of hardware to celebrate the Starfield release, and apparently they have been leaked to be an Xbox wireless controller and headset, which, okay, probably isn't going to be that special. I doubt the headset is going to be a giant astronaut helmet or anything weird like that, and the controller is probably just going to be a slightly different color palette. Oh, I may be in trouble now. They've managed to lower the attack of these characters and get a 4200 character. So I can either activate this and reduce his health by half, or I can try and banish this. Let's hope this works. Let's go ahead and now activate this ability. We'll just toss this guy and then counter this ability. Just really trying as hard as possible to succeed in case he tries to do some kind of trick. Okay. Okay, hopefully this works. Then you attack here, destroys that, doesn't trigger anything. We attack here. It destroys that. It doesn't trigger anything. We attack here. And we win. So it's May 26th, so we only had a few days left to get to Platinum. And we've made it. And that got us 250 gems, which is quite a lot. Otherwise, these rewards are kind of pathetic. Still, just unimportant cards and legacy packs. So inherently, now I stop playing ranked altogether. And then I will fall down to gold tier 5 at the start of the next month. Which, unless I had played all the way to diamond 5, which I'm not going to be able to get to that point, I would always fall down to gold tier 5. Which I really, really wish that you always fell down 5 spots, not to the 5th spot of the previous tier. So if I was platinum 5, I would go to, say, gold 3. Or if I was platinum 3, I would go to gold 3 at the end of the month. I think that would be more fair. And so then that just makes an argument to continue to try to play this. That being said, this is also 2 hours into the stream, so I'll have to do that off screen. Apparently there's yet another issue. In the ranking page of events, when one's global ranking is below 20,001 and one's regional ranking is above 10,000, when ranking points are displayed incorrectly. Interesting. So if I did make it to the point where I was in the rank, I would be able to tell whether I was in the top 10,000. I don't think, though, just making it to that point is going to get me in the top 10,000. It would be a poor statement, frankly, on how difficult the challenge the regionals are if less than 10,000 people by default even made it to the stage 2. And I guess with 4 days left, I should probably do the solo mode. And there's a dual live mode to focus on. The new Alone in the Dark apparently stars David Harbour and Jodie Comer and comes out in October. Sorry, here, just trying to turn on the web blur. See, there we go. I'm really not sure the blur is blurred enough. You know what, though? It is still very weird that I've been covering adult games at the end now of when we look at all the new games that come out on Steam, and I haven't had any complaint at all from YouTube at all. And yet the Pokemon video was the thing that got copyright claimed and gave me more trouble as far as a blocked video. Yeah, I have no idea who these characters are, but also it's probably a good thing that I don't see just like immediate face scan recognizability. It does seem weird, though, that it feels like you're stunt casting people and selling your game on who the actors are, assuming these are names of actual actors and not just names of characters. So David Harbour is from Stranger Things, Black Widow, and Jodie Comer is from Killing Eve and Free Guy, which Free Guy is a movie that probably does not need to be mentioned. But yeah, okay. That definitely seems like that is stunt casting to do face scans and does not touch upon the actual gameplay mechanics and the quality of the game. There is a free prologue out that is available today, so maybe that would give a better bit of information as far as what Alone in the Dark is going to be, since it is clearly just going to be a new game called Alone in the Dark and can't be anything like the old Alone in the Dark. It could be similar in feeling and theme, but that's about it. And yeah, there's a lot of room here for it to be a mediocre game with a mediocre story, or one or the other, or both, if not both. The complete Super Mario Advance series is now available on Switch Online. I think we'd already talked about that. Let's see. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom's latest patch targets duplication glitches, several other issues also were addressed. Honestly, duplication glitches probably shouldn't be targeted, because that is one of the main problems that I had with Breath of the Wild, was the breakable weapons and armors. So if you wanted to do a duplication glitch when you had a good weapon or a good piece of armor, I don't think armor actually broke, shields did, but not actual armor. If you wanted to cheat and duplicate things, I think you should probably just let the players do that. You're really just going to have players ruining their own experience, since it is a single player game anyways. Homeworld 3's release date has been delayed to early 2024. We already talked about that. Turn 10 reveals that Forza Motorsport cover art and gameplay showcase plans. Read that article at Video Games Chronicle if you're interested. More Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 details have seemingly leaked. 3 editions of the unannounced sequel will reportedly be released. The problem with Hot Wheels Unleashed 1, though, was there was too much microtransactions in it for a game that clearly was targeted to kids. So unless 2 sees the writing on the wall and sees that countries like the EU are going to stop allowing you to have microtransactions targeted to kids, or at least severely curtail that business practice, it probably is just going to be more of the same. I also kind of feel like the reviews weren't particularly great. Let's see if we can see what it says on Steam, if I can highlight that. Hot Wheels Unleashed on Steam. I wish I had a plugin that would just search Steam directly. Yeah. They must have fixed the bugs, because you have very positive at 81%, and in the last 30 days it's 79%. This was in 2021, and it is on my wish list. If you get the Game of the Year edition, it doesn't seem like it's probably that expensive, even though that is $90. You can definitely see there's some DLC here, but it actually doesn't seem like there's microtransactions. There is also, though, a problem here that this game might be very popular in its launch time, but the peak today was only 71 players, so it is dead as far as the online player versus player. I also wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these the fans of Hot Wheels Unleashed in general would have gotten it on the Switch. So I don't know if they can really recapture the success they had in the first game by making a sequel. This is good news that they really should have talked more about, in that the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection also comes with Metal Gear 1 and 2, in addition to Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3. It definitely feels like it would have made some sense to mention that. It does also just highlight the weirdness of the Metal Gear series and its narrative, in that every game is crazy standing alone, and it only gets even crazier when you try to follow the narrative of the Solid series. But it definitely is good news. Like, it would be ridiculous to have to go buy Metal Gear 1 and 2 separately or not be able to play it. Dream Studio Media Molecule has appointed a new creative director. John Beach steps up as the lead designer to replace the recently departed Mark Healy, which they really intended for a smooth transition, they would have announced that information at the same time. So it definitely seems like Mark Healy departed fairly abruptly. Of course, we may never really know the true story behind why he departed, if there is really a true story behind it. Let's see. We already talked about the apology, and it's definitely worth mentioning that we should not accept apologies from publishers. Bad games and apologies is not acceptable. We want good games on day one on launch, or just don't launch it. I would not buy a bad car that was buggy and defective and then accept an apology from a car manufacturer. And I wouldn't do that for any product, really. I don't buy products on promises, and that's really all they're saying. Pledges to update and improve the game. I really don't think there's even much you could update or improve there. You would have to scrap the whole thing and start over, which is what I would have done. So, like I said, I would have scrapped the 3D teaser and said, okay, that is just going to be an intro teaser trailer, but in reality, we're going to make this a flat 2D animated point and click game, which is something we are much more familiar with. Or we're going to hire a company that can actually make a 3D game that makes some sense. Moving on, our last Video Games Chronicle article for today says Microsoft has revealed its CMA appeal grounds and says UK regulator overestimates the role of cloud gaming. I think the CMA also has fully released the appeal, and that may be where this information is coming from. Of course, you're getting very deep into the weeds if you bother to read these kinds of articles at this point. Like, most gamers should only really care to see what the final outcome is, and the final outcome is not here yet. It may come fairly quickly, but it probably won't. And the final outcome may very well be just that Microsoft ignores the CMA and sees if the UK actually bans them from doing business in the UK. That brings us to our Gamatsu article with a lot of duplicate articles like Spider-Man 2 gameplay reveal and Kraven the Hunter cinematic and screenshots. I'm a little concerned after watching some of this trailer that Spider-Man 2 may be too Venom-centric. That Peter Parker is just going to be in the Venom suit the entirety of the game, and then you're always just going to have that Venom ability, and then Miles Morales is going to have to save the day and defeat Peter Parker once Venom takes over and turns him into a jerk. The only way you could really avoid having this be much closer to your main gameplay mechanic is to have him get the Venom suit later in the game, or lose the Venom suit earlier in the game, or just not play as Peter Parker that much. Which, all of those are going to be some form of compromise. Let's see, Neptunia game maker R Evolution has an opening movie, if you want to check that out. A classic JRPG inspired game called Sky Ocean's Wings for Hire has been announced for the PS5, Xbox Series, Switch, and PC. It's a turn-based dogfights in the open skies. Okay. Very colorful, little kid-friendly looking. Dogfighting games in general have never really succeeded much in video game world. It'd be nice to see if it did. In a lot of ways, though, most dogfighting on Earth games get overwhelmed with all the dogfighting in space games, and neither one of those genres really are particularly that appealing. does have a Steam link, so I'll put it on the fall list, make a YouTube short on it. Disguise 7 Vows of the Virtualist launches October 3rd in North America and October 6th in Europe. This game was already out in Japan. A tactical turn-based roguelite game called Days of Doom has been announced for the PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Which, maybe is a little too zoomed out from its top-down tilted perspective for its own good. Those visuals aren't grabbing my attention a lot. This is being published by Atari, which Atari also gave up on its ColecoVision new console, and I don't know if I even reported on that news, but they just put that on the back order, on the back burner, and I guess are now focusing more on publishing games again. Although this is still the new Atari, not really connected to the old Atari. The Famitsu sales for the 15th to the 21st have been updated. We have Nintendo Switch games, Tears of the Kingdom in the first place, and then Nintendo Switch until the 12th spot, where we see Hogwarts Legacy. Our first new game is Wand of Fortune R for the Switch in the 13th space, and that is the only new news. And then, excluding Hogwarts Legacy, Nintendo Switch owns 29 out of, well, it owns 28 out of the 30 games on the top 30 list, with Resident Evil 4 taking 30th spot. So the Switch is heavily dominating. We can see the Switch OLED models selling double what the PlayStation 5 is, and then if you would add the Switch Lite and the Switch Original together, it's even more. And then the PlayStation 5 Digital Edition only adds about 4,000 to the count of the PlayStation 5. And then you have very pathetic sales of PS4, relatively even worse by far sales of the Xbox Series X and Series S. The strategic tower defense game Bish Bash Bots has been announced for the PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. That's yet another game on Steam. It's a tower defense game though, so do I really feel like I need to put this on the fall list? I would say no, but I will make a YouTube short around it. Although we should also see, is there an actual release date on these games? No, so I'm not going to make YouTube shorts around games that don't have release dates. Nobunaga's Ambition Awakening details its province war tactics and castle supports. If you want to read that article, Nobunaga's Ambition very possibly not coming to the West, and probably wouldn't be that popular. Aliens Dark Descent gameplay overview trailer is available. It's coming to Steam on June 20th. Which really, if they're going to put out a new gameplay overview trailer, I need to see that that trailer is on Steam to justify making a new YouTube short on it. And in this case, that seems to be the case. And that probably is the way it mostly does work, is that when there is a new trailer, it gets added as the leftmost video, and now that Steam only lets you have 2 videos at the leftmost positions and then starts doing screenshots that put you in a very good, consistent position of getting the same kinds of videos every time I make a YouTube short. A RPG deck builder Cross Blitz has been announced for PC, due out in early access in 2023. See what this looks like. It really doesn't look like anything particularly that interesting. But I'll be really generous and put it on the following list. If anything, building up the following list is the right way to go. A free-to-play multiplayer car combat game called Warhammer 40k Speed Freaks has been announced for PC. Yeah, I am burning through the fall list with the fall list cleanup every stream enough that it does need to be rebuilt with new games to consider. I'm pretty sure there's at least one Warhammer 40k game that's free at the moment. I'll have to double check that. There's been several free games recently. Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 Skulls showcase trailer is available. Which again, I guess means if this is a new video, see. It does paint this weird question though. Are YouTube shorts supposed to be advertisements of here's the new trailer, even though a game doesn't have a release date? Or are they supposed to be much later in the process once the game is actually available for purchase? I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to think about that. Because we are going to run into the situation where gameplay trailers are going to get released specifically on Steam. I could make a YouTube short around that, but then the game is still going to be 6 months to 2 years away from being released. Power Wash Simulator Warhammer 40k collaboration has been announced, which, if we're going to do that, it would need to be the DLC. And I don't think this Midgard DLC is the DLC I'm looking for, so I'm going to say no to that. That's too early as far as that. And yep, that's going to be a weird idea in general, is to be power washing in the Warhammer 40k universe. And all they have is this teaser trailer to show. A real-time strategy game called Warhammer Age of Sigmar Realms of Ruin has been announced for the PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. Open beta test coming soon. Which, it's more zoomed in than you would expect from a real-time strategy game, but honestly, that's probably the right direction to go in RTSs, is to try to improve the graphics a little bit more by zooming in and making it feel like a more modern game, at least in cutscenes. A Metroidvania game called Twilight Monk is going to be published by Gravity Game Arise. The game is based on a series of kung fu, fantasy, and adventure novels. Interesting. Never heard of Twilight Monk in any other form, so it must be somewhat underground. Homeworld 3 delayed to February of 2024. Marvelous announces Project Magia featuring character designs by Hiro Mashima. So we've got kind of Dragon Quest style, maybe a little bit more mature. This is a fairly large chest size and hip ratio for this lady. As far as these characters, I'm not sure though if there's really anything else you could take from that. This is from the Fairy Tail and Eden Zero manga artist. No platforms have been announced. Which I'd have to be more familiar with Eden Zero or Fairy Tail to have made that connection. Or known the name, to recognize the name. Marvelous also announced a Project Life is RPG, an RPG built around the theme of life. Obviously Marvelous had an event in the showcase, and they're announcing some early beginnings of announcements in the Japanese style of announcing things very early and then having a lot more announcements before the game actually comes out. Two new Story of Seasons games have been announced. One is a traditional game, one is a multiplayer game. Interesting that they said it was diligently under development. A game called Rune Factory Project Dragon has been announced, set in the Land of the East. And this video would just be the entire showcase. It's like a 30-minute showcase with different timestamps on it. I think Rune Factory is a RPG game. It sounds like it would be a match 3 game, but it isn't. Rune Factory 6 has been announced. It's been set in a western continent of Adonia, if you're familiar with the storyline. Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion has been announced. It is an unforgettable Arsenal action game. Let's see if we can maybe get a general idea of what that looks like. I do remember a game called Daemon X Machina, but I just remember the name. I don't remember anything else about it. And this very well may just be a tease that shows you the name and nothing else. Some kind of armor or mech suit. They really are teasing this. Yeah, the Japanese company showing a mech suit isn't really spoiling anything. So they can just continuously show parts of a mech suit, and even to a Japanese audience, I think most people go, okay, I see a mech suit, what game is that connected to? There's so many mech suit type games. Plus this is probably a new mech suit with new visuals, so it probably doesn't look like the last Daemon X Machina. There may very well be dialogue being spoken too. It definitely feels like the focus there was only on the mech suit, so expect a big focus on mech suits. Mobile Suit Gundam Battle Operation 2 for PC launches May 31st. PC version finally dated. Another game with Gundams, which are not quite mech suits because they're much bigger. It's been around for the PS5 and PS4 since July of 2018. It's a free-to-play battle action game. You would think that there would be a long list of fairly successful Mobile Suit Gundam games, and yet there isn't. Perhaps in part that is because there is too much political intrigue around Mobile Suit Gundam that is better delivered as an anime, as a story, than in a more interactive experience. And most Mobile Suit Gundams do just boil down to attacking random enemies over and over again. But mostly I think it is also just that Gundams don't really control particularly well, and so most people don't want to play that type of game. And the people that do want to play a Gundam game tend to want to fully immerse themselves in the cockpit using a bunch of heads-up displays and custom controllers and things like that. Let's see. The Alone in the Dark reboot launches October 25th. Playable prologue is available now. There's some more screenshots here, but I think the trailer is basically the same. We do have an answer to one question in the screenshots, and now that we now know there's going to be skeleton type characters and monster type characters, bug type characters. So we know it isn't just going to be shadows or zombies. And I assume every one of these screenshots that shows a face has been added, but maybe all the screenshots are the same. Or new. And only this trailer is the old trailer. Moving on, One Period for PC is coming to the West on December 22nd. It's going to support English, Japanese, and Chinese language options. Is it coming to Steam, or is it coming to another site? Genre. Interesting. Let's start with the Steam page and look at what the game looks like. Classic 90s visual novel returns as an updated modern remake to celebrate the developer's 30th anniversary. Seems like it is probably a pretty simplistic visual novel. What is genre as a website look like? This is one thing about my new routers, that with the QoS turned off, you very much have blackness as it's trying to load everything. It doesn't seemingly try to open the pages as fast as possible. So genre is a different storefront of some sort. And we probably at this point won't know anything about whether there might have been something censored in this game. It being an older game, I suspect not so much, but maybe. There is definitely some different screenshots, it feels like, on genre than compared to the Steam listing. If anything, it seems like the screenshots picked on Steam are trying to be more around these cutesy chibi images, less around these images. So obviously a decision was made there. I don't know if there was a reason really for that decision. Steam doesn't really stop you from uploading potentially an infinite number of screenshots, so they could have uploaded as many screenshots as they did on genre if they wanted to. Ys 10 Nordics teaser commercial limited edition, new characters, seafaring, and more have been detailed. I guess the question here, and this is where a struggle may come, is if we start to get details on a Gematsu article that might lead to a trailer that might justify making a new YouTube short, or might lead to more screenshots that might lead to a YouTube short. And I would just have to struggle to find out if that's the case. Or just ignore it completely, which is, I think, the better move in this case. And just move on. The Wonderful 101 remastered free DLC, The Wonderful 1 After School Hero Part 2 is now available. So, if you liked Part 1, there's now Part 2. I don't know if breaking it into two parts when I think both parts were free makes a lot of sense. Wulong Fallen Dynasty DLC Battle of Zongyuan launches June 29th, which You can see Wulong Fallen Dynasty not particularly well received. So I don't know if there's a real reason why I would promote it, particularly since they don't have a DLC link here to that DLC yet. Sword Art Online Last Recollection system trailer is available. So, is this a system trailer? Almost it would have to be labeled as the system trailer for me to justify making another short around it. Assuming I made one short around it, which is a big assumption. And that is going to create a problem too, is that I may very well be looking from the perspective, should I make another short around the game when I haven't made a YouTube short in the first place around the game, which that would be a major tragedy to potentially completely skip a game because I overthought it. Front Mission 2 remake has been delayed to an unannounced date, which that's bad news. Ys Nordic's gameplay, field and naval combat is also available on Gamatsu. And then Naughty Dog says The Last of Us multiplayer game needs more time. A new single player experience is also in development, which undoubtedly they should have announced a new single player experience was in development before they announced the multiplayer was in development. They could have said, we're making a new Last of Us 2 single player experience. Also, we're making a multiplayer experience. But you shouldn't announce the multiplayer and then say, oh, we're giving up on the multiplayer or slowing down production on the multiplayer to make a single player. Alright. So we've got some fall. Let's clean up here. Shooter Fish is 93% positive, but it's still in early access from 2021. I'm going to give it more time, but I really shouldn't. Fishbone is from May 2023. I'll give it more time. Thought for a second there we may end up with a lot of fish things. Here we have a very positive VR tennis game. I'll leave that on the fall list. Here we have a first date, late to date full motion video experience. It's very positive. The thing I don't want to have is to cover the game where the guy's a sleazeball and he's got all these full motion video games, and I don't know how to really be certain that this guy, which is a different guy than what I'm thinking of, is a sleazeball. And the danger there is those games probably were highly reviewed. What was the name of that game? It's like a Turkish guy. Many translation issues, including some scenes where it's translated from Turkish into Turkish. 90% are translated to English. My first playthrough was about 20 minutes. Every positive review here is saying just keep your expectations low. And I think that's enough to say no to this. It's also just going to be a weird type of game that's not very much of a video game. But, man, I cannot think of the game I was comparing it to. First Class Escape Train of Thought, we can see it's mixed, so that can leave the follow list. The guy was all into the idea of negging and being rude and negative to the people he was dating. Let's see, this game is tagged with sexual content. Let me just make sure there's nothing YouTube inappropriate. So First Bite is a visual novel. Looks like a more Western-inspired visual novel with vampire characters. You get some beefcakes with the ladies, too. I don't know if there's really too much here, though, but it follows the rules. It has over 30 reviews. It's very positive. We can add it to the wish list. Inherently, I may end up with a wish list just full of visual novels that I never really would buy. This July 1st Fire Squad game is not relevant enough, unfortunately, so I think we just have to say no to that. Let's see. Firelight Fantasy Vengeance. I think we can say no to that. I don't know why that was on the fall list in the first place, because it's very generic heads-up display. Maybe I was just thinking a fantasy game in general might be interesting. Otherwise, it might just be a case where I hit the wrong button. Fire Girl Hack and Splash Rescue DX is a game I really would have wanted to see a positive reviews on, but yep, clearly it's not getting positive reviews, and it's been out a long time. And then the next game must have been delisted from Steam because we're on the main page of Steam now, which kind of worth it to look at what the main page of Steam looks like at the moment. It's a little zoomed in more than it should be, but they're promoting some kind of random games at the top here, and then weekend deals, which they always promote that. Feels like Dead Space is on sale yet again. Feels like it was on sale a few weeks ago. Steam definitely feels like they don't have a lot of new games to promote at the moment. So instead you have also Steam Deck and Valve Index taking their own little row up, which definitely feels like there would have been room to squeeze in here to have a third hardware like a Steam PC. What I'd really like to see is potentially Valve partner or acquire Framework PC and make their own gaming laptops or desktops. That would be an interesting acquisition, to say the least. Or just an interesting twist. Apparently Project Passion Season 1, which from what I've heard is maybe a scam, is in the new and trending spot. And it looks like Steam, at least on its front page, has finally done the thing they should have done a long time ago and put this screenshot may contain mature content. Also, it is in text that is selectable, which means a screen reader could read it better. Although, in fairness, a screen reader would probably prefer to give you a description of the images. As far as new and trending, if you look at the full list here, there are several adult games taking up that top 10 spot, which does highlight that adult games sell a lot more than you may imagine. And then they're recommending me Lego games because I've been playing Lego games most recently. And then our last fall list cleanup is Fire Truck Simulator from July of 2022. I guess I have to say no to that too. Let's see. Google Play Games adds UK and New Zealand to their PC beta. I tried to launch the Google Play Games for their PC beta, and I turned off the virtualization on my computer, so via the BIOS, so I couldn't launch it again. That being said, I just don't think they are really adding any new games in the beta. And it just really does not feel like Google Play Games as an idea is the right way to bring Android based games to PC. It feels like it would make a lot more sense for there to just be a virtual machine running Android for real, instead of trying to translate everything. But the more Google tries to make a translation app, the better they get, the closer they get to potentially having the Java / Kotlin programmed games. It used to be Java, now it's called Kotlin. Like, the closer they get to a point where somebody could program a game in Kotlin and it would work perfectly on an Android device, any kind of Android device, and it would also run on a Windows PC or a PC in general, which would be very ideal. But they're very far away from that too. Android is just not really designed to support a lot of different resolutions and aspect ratios and multiple screens, multiple monitors. They're making slow progress there, but the difference between an Android 12 operating system and an Android 13 is not vast jumps, and they would have to make a lot of vast jumps to make Android make sense on PC, and Android apps make sense on PC. Let's see, we already kind of talked about Microsoft filing the appeals against the CMA block on the Activision Blizzard merger. GameDeveloper.com has that article too. Enad Global 7 is shuttering the UK studio Antimatter Games in search of, quote, profitability. I don't know this parent company, and I don't know Antimatter Games. They made Iggy Origins, a game I haven't heard of, and Rising Storm. So we'll just leave it at that. Media Molecule's new creative director is veteran designer John Beach. We talked about that. We already talked about Pokemon selling over 480 million units. A canceled Metal Gear Solid board game has been revived for a 2024 release, which I guess maybe that's interesting. It's not very video game related though. It's really just merchandise and advertising. The World War II MMO Heroes and Generals is shut down. This was a 7-year-old MMO that I've never heard of. A World War II MMO inherently implies that World War II would just go on forever, and that your battles wouldn't really matter in the long run. And I feel like World War II fans, of which there's probably fewer and fewer as the years go by, would want strategy to actually have an impact on the overall game. Also, you run into the problem of half of the people in a World War II simulator playing as the bad guys, the Nazis, and you don't want them winning in your MMO. And then a report that The Last of Us multiplayer game is being reassessed by Naughty Dog. I think that report at this point has been confirmed. So, here we have an adult game, now that we're looking at all the games that come out of Steam, and we'll try and burn through this fairly quickly. We have a game called Fairy Hunter, which really feels like it is just an asset flip game. You have this character with this like curved whip, and then you have this other character all tied up in shibari style bondage, and that's like most of the first three videos. The first video, one video, and 2 screenshots. But when you look at the backgrounds, it's pretty asset flip nothing. Whip based combat idea for $4.99 English and Chinese. I bet, since it is a Chinese game, and a low quality Chinese game at that, which, let's face it, most of them are, I bet there really isn't any actual adult content or nudity in it. So you're getting the back of the legs, and that's about it. Next, we have a game that is actually in the adult section called Black Academy, which has the flat 2D anime look, and in fairness, it really is going very close to the moe kawaii art style, so you have fairly anatomically incorrect, younger looking characters. Now, it looks like it's mostly a shoot 'em up game, which is also something you wouldn't really expect in an adult game. So I question if maybe there isn't actually that much adult content in it, but there clearly is some from the screenshots. This one is also already on my follow list, so I don't know when I saw it before. It's $13.59. It supports English, Korean, Chinese, and Japanese, and interface and subtitles, no voice acting. They are in the warning saying all characters are 18 years old. The fact that it was already on my follow list means that this was a game that actually did get some advertisement and promotion before being released. And for an adult game, that is somewhat unique. It does still put me in kind of a weird position though, because I can't really put it on the wish list yet, because it only has 22 reviews. It also would be a very weird game to play as a shoot 'em up game, as far as just the adult content getting in the way. It actually does feel like a game, but I would basically need to censor my footage or find a patch or something to censor the footage if I was going to try and cover it on Steam, or find somewhere else where I can cover it. Next we have a 3D CGI adult game called Sex Simulator BDSM Girls. First screenshot of the video says pick your girl, pick a lady, and shows you 3 different ladies, a lady with black hair, a blonde, and a lady with pink hair. They all seem physically about the same height and about the same build. One looks maybe a little bit more muscly, one looks maybe a little bit skinnier than the others. They all seem fairly skinny. As far as the screenshots, it seems like there's a lot of furniture and toys and devices potentially here. There's a screenshot here of what looks like custom built shower spraying a lady with water, and then there's a pillory and a lady getting spanked with a flogged, I guess. It does seem like it's all girl on girl action though, and it doesn't seem like there's much else going on here. A little bit of dialogue, there's some kind of energy bars, so it does look like it really is a simulator of some sort, but honestly, if there was one good adult simulator out there, there would only be need for one good adult simulator, because then you could just simulate everything else. And so I assume, particularly since there's a whole bundle of games here under that sex simulator title, that's more of an advertisement claim than an actually delivered upon promise. It says it has 90 plus HD quality renders and HD animations. Selling yourself as HD at this point is kind of silly. It really should be at 2K or 4K, particularly if this is just CGI models. It all seems to take place in one location too, indoors. So yeah, nothing particularly amazing there. But we are, in general, keeping an eye out to see how many adult games come out on this Friday, since it has been very few for the rest of the week. This Funk Cat doesn't look like anything of interest. Pirates Pinball. Is this based on a real pinball table? Not one I recognize. We'll give that a follow. Hacking Bull looks like nothing. Let's see. Araka JK Exorcist Horror RPG. Do I want to say anything around this? I think at a certain point I probably would say yes, but looking at these screenshots, I think I have to say no even in this case. Yeah. I am effectively curating the YouTube shorts away from RPG Maker type games and things that don't look particularly good quality, and things that are mixed reviewed in their first launch, or things that are mostly negative reviewed. 8%, that is pretty low. Yeah, there needs to be a level of curation on the YouTube shorts. There's just not enough time in the day to make a YouTube short around everything. Even if I made my own channel. That's one of the things that YouTube's perspective, one of the latest people in charge of YouTube, was talking about, is that they feel like, or they claim they're getting feedback of viewers being overwhelmed with too many choices, which usually when that claim is made, that's a total lie, in my opinion. So making more content for my YouTube channel is just going to be fought against. The algorithm is just going to fight that as much as it can to not put the content in front of people. Next we have another 2D, more colorful anime style game, adult game called Magical Charge Duet, which they're calling it an AVG. Don't know what an AVG is. It looks like, oh, AVG would be an adult video game, wouldn't it? It looks like a visual novel to me. Yeah, it is. It says it has full Japanese audio to it. Is there anything special here that make me want to put it on the follow list, though? No. I mean, there's an elf girl in it, and there's a cat girl in it, and there's a maybe succubus girl and a what looks like normal human girl, but that seems to be about it. Very standard game. $5.99 with full Japanese acting. It's going to come down to just like the number of pictures and words in the game, and possibly reviews if you were interested in that. Doesn't look bad. Looks like a fine kind of quality product, or a semi-medium quality product. Here we have a game called Aerophone Ray, which that would imply some romance or adult content, but it's not in the adult section. And yep, they're calling it an interactive narrative puzzle game. Or Aerophone Re. Apparently this might be a remake. Yeah, there's a Aerophone here. Storyline contains erotic plot descriptions and not contain plots such as non-consensual sexual behavior. So have we really gotten down to the point where you have to use the phrase non-consensual because the R word is so inflammatory? I feel like this DLC here might uncensor it. Yep, it does. So yeah, it is a game that has adult content in it that has been censored, and then you get the free DLC patch to censor it, which works fairly well for a streamer like me, and even people who don't stream, who maybe just want to play the game one way and then see the adult content later or never see the adult content. I can see potentially going through a visual novel game, unlocking all the pictures and doing the whole story, and spending the majority just focusing on the story, and then once I've had my fun with the story and unlocking all the CG images, installing the adult patch to see what had been censored. Particularly if there's just like a photo gallery where you would spend 5 minutes going through the photo gallery seeing the uncensored images. I commissioned some mice as yet another hidden object game. There's too many of those from that same person. The Hope Ringer. Yeah, I'll give it a chance. How many deaths to clear? Looks like nothing. Shrooms. Might be something. Chronicle of Two Heroes. Amaratsu's Wrath. Maybe there's something there. I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't actually that many games that were released this Friday. Here we have another adult game, which the adult games are not being bundled back and forth, but they are being bundled all on this Thursday and Friday time. And I think I can just directly show and comment this game, Abandoned Void, in that it is a asset flip horror game from the looks of it, and seems like there are some very generic asset flip outfits with an asset flip 3D model that really does not work or connect to this monster. A survival supernatural hidden object game. You can see there's a bikini outfit, a single piece bikini, which is not really that revealing. If you're going to go with the idea of a character is in a compromised, exposed position because they have like exposed flesh in a horror game, it would make a lot of sense for the outfit to be torn or ripped in some way at the beginning of the story, and not just that they're somehow ridiculously in a swim outfit for no good reason. Although most of the costumes are just ridiculous outfits. This game, Abandoned Void, is $3.39 in English only. Yeah, I definitely think it's probably pretty deceptive to have this in the adult content section. Like, what are they saying is actually in here? Let's see, sexually explicit scenes, representation of genitalia, but not actual depictions of genitalia, sexless monsters, lesbianisms, threesomes, swinging, suggestive costumes and poses, partial and full nudity. This may just be a case that they censored themselves severely in the screenshots. Yeah, some of these screenshots, I guess, are more revealing. And that's probably a problem. Like, we still vary very wildly between some adult games not showing anything while being in the adult section, and then most adult games showing everything, showing too much in the screenshots. Here we have a game called The Pit. Doesn't look terrible. I'm gonna give it a chance. Of course, the problem with this idea is that there probably should be a pit fighting sequence in lots and lots of types of games instead of it being its own separate thing. Yeah. Anyways, I'll leave it at that. We have a Grimm's Tales: The Hunger Collector's Edition, hidden object game. Make a YouTube short around that. Super Virus Defense. I definitely am not particularly interested though in playing hidden object games myself. I played enough of them. Formula BWOA online multiplayer racing is already mixed, so we can say no to that. And then here we have a game just called The Button, which looks like nothing. And here we have something called The Ball. Is this all coming from the same developer and publisher? And then Heroes of Spyria. Yeah, even though this is widescreen and it looks pretty good for an RPG Maker type game, or JRPG type game, still just have no interest in it at all. I guess what it would come down to is if there's actual press releases coming out around the game that's a JRPG game, I might make a YouTube short around that. But if I just happen to see something on Steam, I have to just assume it's an RPG Maker asset flip. And you're never really going to get any testament to the quality of the story or the length of the game. Let's see, Orb Wars, Action Roguelite Co-op. Not sure what that is. One of the things I thought, if I can get the interstitial web pages to work, is that I would want to end each stream on an interstitial page too, so we can get away from the potential situation in which there is an adult game as the last game in the list, and then I have to go back to the second to last tab. I'm not sure this Project Passion Season 1 is the game I was thinking of. It's a 3D CGI game with a lot of different ladies and guys, although it seems to be more focused on having just a wide variety of like anthropomorphic animal ladies and demon ladies and robot ladies. It's all kind of vanilla from the looks of it as far as the forms of fetishes outside of the people involved. Like, I'm going through all these screenshots and there's one lady with a medium-sized vibrator and that's it. And then the next screenshot has a robot lady shooting a laser through the head of somebody. I suspect there probably is some story here, but I wouldn't expect there to be too much. And see, they're promising a season 1, so it would imply that there would be a season 2 and a better level of writing. It's $10.79 and it has a $1.49 walkthrough, and it says it has English full audio, but its second most supported language on the list is Russian, then Chinese, then Italian, then Portuguese, Brazil. So I'm a little bit iffy on that point as to whether I would trust it. Let's see, it says it has 3,863 individual renders, which is way too many, and that this would include updates 1 through 7, which season 1, obviously season 2. Says it's 19 highly quality animated sex scenes with 42 different positions and numerous angles, 15 animated and voice acted cutscenes, so considerably fewer voice acted cutscenes, and then 33 achievements, which that's a red flag too, to have an adult game selling itself on its achievements. I don't know if I even want to bother to try to put this on the fall list, because there's just not anything here that looks that amazing. The 3D models, perhaps a little bit better polished than what you normally see, maybe a slight step up, but then a lot of these screenshots also just look terrible. And see, this is maybe the new and trending game today, but it may be forgotten next week, and so I'm gonna just leave it at that and not put it on the fall list because it doesn't catch my attention. Next, we have a game called Carnage Offering TD, which I assume is a tower defense game. Yep, it looks like just a very dark black and red tower defense game that happened to have way too highly polished 3D face cutscenes. Which that's not a terrible way to add some polish to a kind of generic tower defense game, to make it feel like people are actually talking to you and working with you. But it still doesn't really get around the fact that it's a tower defense game, and so the vast majority of time you're not going to be looking at these cutscenes. You're going to be playing a tower defense game. And I guess because of its uniqueness in that case, I will put it on the follow list and see if people really respond to that. But I still probably would not play a tower defense game, particularly one that's as dark and not in a color palette that I particularly like. Blacks and reds is not really that helpful for a tower defense game. Here we have a game that might be an adult game. Once again, it is a game that's been censored, and then the adult content has been offered as free DLC. So this might be the best way to do this, in that you sell the game outside of the adult store so a lot more people see it, and then you put the DLC inside the adult store. Notably here, it seems like it changes the name completely to Shibari with NSFW content for Day to Foxgirl. Of course, the problem here is you've just got this puzzle gameplay mechanic, which is not a lot, and I don't think the censorship is really going to be that much either. Like, in this picture, maybe a little more cleavage would be shown. In this picture, maybe more cleavage would be shown, but probably no nipples. Here, you could see this black part just being the censor. Here, you might actually have full toplessness in this case. But when you look at these poses, even if the character was fully nude, these screenshots aren't really promising that much. You can see it has that live 2D bounce effect on it. It is 84 cents. But it is also just a large quagmire if you started to try and play these kinds of games, or particularly as a YouTuber, if I started to try and play these games, in that I'd be playing a very boring puzzle game for a mediocre amount of adult content. So I have to say no to that. Legendary Hope Light Ajax's Trail. This looks to me like this is a ripoff of Heroes of Might and Magic, which is exactly what I'd love to see. So I am very excited around this. That being said, Legendary Hoplite itself is not out yet. So that is effectively a prologue. So should I make YouTube shorts around prologues, particularly prologues that are going to kind of trick me into not realizing it's a prologue? I guess I'm making a exception here, and this is definitely, for the most part, Heroes of Might and Magic. it seems like it might be more action-based and not turn-based like Heroes of Might and Magic, which that changes how it plays a lot. I wonder if there's another game that is in that same style to compare it to other than Heroes of Might and Magic. And they did announce they were remaking Heroes of Might and Magic, I think. Remastering it or something. I don't think they were making a new one though. Retro Rocket Raiders. It's nothing. Diffusion. Doesn't look like anything. Town of Salem 2. Player versus player. Let's see. Town of Salem 1. Apparently, I already own. So I'll put this on the fall list. I must have gotten Town of Salem 1 for free. We have about 5 more games today and then we'll be done. Indoor kickball doesn't look like anything, and frankly you shouldn't encourage kids to be playing dodgeball or kickball in the inside. Here we have another adult game in Fantasy Love, which it's more of a Western art style, I would say, slightly, but it's flat 2D and very colorful like anime. You have a bunch of fantasy characters, a succubus, an elf girl, cat girl, same collection. It's the simplest 2D puzzle game with the final goal to give you pleasure, is the description. They're nice little still images, but there is not a single screenshot here to actually show any gameplay footage. They're selling it for $1.19. It's English only. And all of these adult games try to sell in bigger bundles for larger amounts of money. There's basically barely anything in the description at all. Nothing as far as how many puzzles there are or anything like that. There's 20 Steam achievements, so very possibly there's only 20 pictures. There's no real interaction happening, so this is very much just artistically posed boudoir type images, nude images, which sometimes that's perfectly acceptable if that's all you're really looking for. A lot of the 3D CGI Western games tend to go very extreme when something more vanilla can definitely be more appreciated. But in the case of Fantasy Love, there's just not enough there to put any faith in it. That's one of those games also where you have to kind of question whether they officially licensed those images or whether they just found them online and downloaded them. Here we have another student project in Digipen, which I'll put that on the follow list. And I could see a reason to make YouTube shorts around student projects, but they still are going to have to be somewhat interesting visually, even if they are a student project. And it looks like we have a very big whack-a-mole type game, which, yeah, this is too creepy of a clown, frankly, for just a generic whack-a-mole game, which is what you would really want. It's just a generic whack-a-mole game, and him beating on different kinds of animals doesn't do anything. So that's going to be a no. So yeah, this would be the point where I'd have one more tab and move to the other tab to be done, to be off, say, this screen. But since we don't have that working yet, we'll end it here. That's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. I guess I'm still looking for comments and feedback as far as announcements. like, I don't know where else I could share my videos and have it be automated with something like if this then that, particularly since if this then that on its free modes really is only letting you have two programs per account, which is a very small amount unless you pay for the pro. And if I was paying for the pro, I'd just continue to put tweets out. So yeah, they, like, weirdly it points to following me on Tumblr more than anywhere else, and I don't even know if my Tumblr link is in the description. Mostly I just need people to follow me on YouTube. So I might put out a special tweet to point that out too. And just pin a tweet saying, hey, follow me at this point if you want any new notifications of videos. Anyways, I was wrapping up. There are social media links for whatever works still. I think Facebook may still work. And that's going to be that. There's also links to Patreon. Sometimes my Patreon is enabled, and ways in which you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game or a gift card to support me further that way. But mostly, I just think I'd prefer people to continue to try and find as many people to subscribe to my channel as possible. Let me get to 1,000 subscribers so then I can focus on getting to the amount of watch time that would be necessary. Yeah. Anyways, that's it for this stream. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.